Starfield is such a disappointment and flat-out disaster that people are losing hope in Elder Scrolls 6. Honestly, I think it's easier to make a new game than fix Starfield at this point.
So fun fact, I've actually been working on this video for a little while. The basic premise at the very start was how I would fix Starfield. I was gonna come up with a bunch of things I would do to quickly adjust it, change it, in ways that I think would actually make a tangible difference and allow players to enjoy the game much more. However,
yeah, the problem here is at the very start when you're playing Starfield, you think, yeah, there's probably not that much that needs to be changed here. But the more you play and the more you think about it, the more impossible it becomes. It's actually hard to name anything that Starfield does in particular good, honestly.
I didn't want to just throw stuff out there blindly. I wanted to make actual recommendations that were possible, and that led me down a rabbit hole of looking into different realities of the creation engine and how they actually handle data within the engine, and it basically led me to the conclusion that Starfield is probably screwed, but I'm going to show you why. You see,
Okay, so he already has one big fallacy here. He has already pretty much set him on a deserted island to fail with this type of thinking. You're a consumer! You do not need to think about the engine's limitations on how to fix the game. The engine's limitations, everything that the developers have problems with, are not your problem. It's the developer's problem. Say it with me. You, as a consumer, do not have to worry about the horrors of reality for developers. Your job is to just say, this is bad, I want it better. And if you have an idea how it is better, you can say it. But if you just want to say Starfield bad fix, that is a completely, 100% without a doubt, a viable argument. No one has the ability to demand that you give constructive criticism. You just need to say it's bad, fix it now. That's it.
as of right now, everybody basically agrees that Starfield has some strengths, but it also has a lot of weaknesses, and most of its weaknesses are centered around exploration, which is...
I would want to hear about these strengths, honestly. Whenever anyone talks about Starfield not being bad, but actually being good, no one ever says what's good about Starfield. I have legitimately not a single time heard anyone say, oh, this is good about Starfield. The best that people come up with is the ship designing, which I would say is complete useless garbage gunk that shouldn't even exist in the first place because it's meaningless, you know. But that's the closest people get to saying something's good about Starfield. Usually this is what people do. They're gonna try to tell you that Starfield's good because it's actually not as bad as people say.
perhaps the most important element of the game.
And when asked deeper, how is it not as bad as people say, their response is, well, it's pretty bad, but it's not that bad.
Design, considering it's meant to be a space exploration game. A lot of this is tied up in the minutia of gameplay though, running around planets aimlessly looking for interesting things to do. And when paired with someone's promises of over 1,000 planets to explore and basically endless content to enjoy, it makes it really difficult to enjoy the game because you're always spawned into little bitty fish bowls that you can run around in, and then you have to fast travel a few times to get to a new one or to a different planet. And as a result, the game is just constantly held back by its own technical limitations.
That's actually not the problem. That is a woeful misstatement of the problem. The problem, so he's implying that Todd Howard lied, which he does constantly, by the way, if you have not been paying attention. He is literally the snake soul salesman of the galaxy. He is my spirit animal, in fact. Okay? So, the things that people are pissed that Todd lied about is the fact that he sold this game as open world, essentially. He said, yeah, you can just fly straight to that planet. And then there's people who are gonna blatantly lie and say, he never said that. And, you know, there's multiple videos, there's replies, there's posts, there's tweets, there's, you know, so many instances when the lead devs, when Todd Howard himself has just said, yeah, you can just fly around everywhere. You can just do this. It's blah blah blah, and it's not. That's the problem. Not the fact that we are in a box. Okay, everything in the box is the problem, but the box is also a problem though.
Over the first 10-20 hours of gameplay, it might not bug you that much, especially while you're completing narrative quest lines. However, the moment you go out to explore for its own sake, this will rear its ugly head and people will grow more and more frustrated. And I actually think this is part of the reason we've seen a recent influx of negative reviews around the game, in addition to the fact that I think the lower price point, 30% off, introduced some new players who were perhaps a little bit more critical than those that bought it day one because they were so excited as...
No, this is also not true. The only reason Starfield in the beginning had a positive score is because of Bethesda fanboys. Bethesda fanboys are real. They were absolutely fighting tooth and nail before Starfield came out, and, you know, massively just ganking up on people who made videos about, well, Starfield doesn't actually look that good. Trust me, I know. I made videos about this, that Starfield looks like Trashfield in everything that Bethesda released around it. Yeah. The reason this game even has positive score is because there's a lot of Bethesda fanboys. There's literally probably tens of thousands of Bethesda fanboys. And the first place they're gonna go and play the game is Steam. Why? Because that's where the mods are gonna be. Because the Bethesda fanboys innately care about modding more than anything else in life. And, you know, if you're that simplistic, well, good for you, honestly. I would also want to live a completely blind life, but, you know, we can't all be happy. So, they massively just press yes, game good, without playing it, without anything, because that's what the Bethesda fanboy does. And now that normal people are coming into this game, people who don't even know that this debate is happening on YouTube, the people who have consumed zero content about this game, they're just looking at it and saying, hey, this sounds not bad, and then they're playing it, and they're leaving a negative review because, well, most people obviously think Starfield is shit. So, probably 9 out of 10 newcomers to the game who don't know anything about Bethesda or anything are just gonna think that this game is bad. And this is why it's always gonna be mostly negative. There's nothing that can save it.
Fans of BGS games, but if you go down here, it's a lot of people who have finished the game. They've gone through the whole story, 40, 50, 60 hours, 134 hours.
Sad.
All of these people have finished the game and they simply found it wanting for various reasons. But I think the reason it's taken a little bit for public opinion to change so much is because Starfield is a game that actually bitters and sours with time. It doesn't age like a fine wine. And I actually have data to prove it. A handful of days ago, I actually sent out a survey on the channel community page where I simply...
Yeah. Again, I have so many people that comment on every Starfield video and say, wow, because this game is so bad, I am not excited for Elder Scrolls 6. People are afraid. People are afraid it's going to be a disaster considering how bad Starfield is.
We asked, after Starfield, are you more or less excited for the Elder Scrolls 6? And of the people that responded, over 70,000 of you, 60% said they were less excited. And only 6% said that they were more excited. Which... already, that's not great. I'm sorry, Todd. It's just not. Like, you would hope after every release, your audience is even more excited for whatever's coming next. If you are a baker and you make a cake, or bake a cake, I guess, technically, and then you bring it to the dinner party and everybody tastes it, they're going to be more excited, assuming it was good, for the next cake that you bring. They're not going to be worried that the next cake is going to suck terribly. The only reason they would worry is if the cake you brought today wasn't actually very good. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, this cake wasn't just bad, it had rats in it.
Those moments where I'm like, okay.
As an intentional ingredient.
I think I'm just hungry. I keep bringing up food analogies in these videos. I gotta stop. I need to eat before filming. But anyway, this wasn't actually the first time I did this poll. 3 months ago, shortly after the game launched, I did the poll as well with 62,000 votes. And of those who responded to the same question, just this time with an option also for never cared to begin with, but of those people, 23% of respondents said they were more excited for the game, and only 29% said that they were less excited. So we've seen the numbers double for those who are less excited, and the number not just half, more than half, dropped to a quarter of what it was before for the people that are more excited. Now, what happened? Maybe the data pool is just fundamentally different somehow, and so even though there's over 60...
Nah, this is fine. This tells a pretty good story of what's happening.
60,000 participants, the sample size is skewed or something. Who knows? I don't think my audience or the people getting this poll has changed that much in 3 months, but maybe it has. Or has public perception actually shifted? I'm more inclined to think that public perception has actually shifted as more people have played the game, given it a fair shot, and just seen that some of these things don't really work. Now, one of the good things about this is that we're getting mods from very talented modders that are actively improving the game in various different ways. This mod allows you to control the speed of your ship to extreme levels, basically giving you what is effectively a warp drive, allowing you to just in real time travel at like multiple times the speed of light if you want to, so you can warp around planets really easily and explore flying between planets freely without load screens and stuff like that, which is super, super cool. And lots of mods like this have been created. You see there's some weird behavior on the
yeah. So the problem with this is a lot of people, including myself, obviously said that, yeah, the fast travel is stupid. But changing fast travel is not gonna save anything. The reality of Starfield is everything's bad. Bethesda somehow magically managed even to fail the most basic thing that I didn't even think was failable. Lockpicking. And not in the new minigame. The new minigame is fine, in my honest opinion. But the fact that what's in the containers... A container with no lock can have the same level of gear as a container with an expert lock. That's just stupidity at its finest. You know, when you see an expert lock, you're not excited anymore. In Fallout, every time you saw a novice lock, you were excited because, oh, this is experience, this is gonna be ammo, maybe healing or whatever. But in Starfield, a novice chest could have, like, I don't know, a construction frame in it. And you know what what an expert chest could have in it? Another construction frame. When you fail on such a basic rudimentary level, as even just, you know, putting correct loot in chests, I don't know what what can be saved. No, this is not even mentioning the dialogue.
Ship, but that has to do with another bug that we're going to talk about in in just a minute. As you see, it freaks out a little bit when you try to go too far away from where you loaded into, and I will explain what that is in just a moment, because that is
who cares what
kind
that
of the
is.
Fatal flaw of Starfield that apparently is not that fixable. But seriously, if you want to go through some of the quests on Nexus of all the different stuff people have actually improved and changed and added and tweaked within the game already, it's pretty crazy. I know there's been memes and people joking that a lot of big modders are abandoning Starfield because they just find the game too boring.
It's not a joke.
And while I think that's part of it, there is a larger part, which again we'll get to in just a second. I'll stop teasing you with it, but there are some core issues within Starfield and the creation engine that really make it difficult, apparently, to do some of the expansive mods that we were hoping for. For example, I wrote down a big list of all the things I would like to see come to Starfield, things that I think would really add to the gameplay experience for the player, such as primarily opening up the fish bowls so when you land on a planet, you can just explore freely, making it so you can basically go from one end of the planet to the other if you wanted to. And
this was a popular thing that people talked about at the start, and it shows a fundamental misunderstanding. Well, I think it's honestly not a misunderstanding, it's just people being stupid and bad-faithed in this situation. It's the fact that people were saying, oh, you want us to travel around the planet? Yes, like Todd promised. Yes, I would actually love that. But you're not actually gonna do it. What's the point? What's the point of running around the planet? That's stupid. You will not do it. Correct. I would never do it. But it's the simple fact that knowing that you can do it adds so much to the experience. Knowing that you're stuck in four walls, a small sandbox, takes away from the experience. That is the simple thing here. Knowing that you can, even though almost no one would ever actually attempt it because it's stupid and pointless, would add to the experience of the open world. Not take away with it by knowing that, oh, if you go 1 minute in that direction, you're gonna bump into an invisible wall. That's bad. It's that simple.
Pairing with that, also adding vehicles, allowing you to travel quickly and as far as you needed to away from your ship, still able to fast travel back. But if you're not going to give me the ability to fly in my ship, which I still insist would be the ideal, at the very least giving me a rover or a motorcycle or a car or something like that that I could operate on these planets would be a nice have. And this is apparently something they're bringing to the game. They announced this just 2 weeks ago, saying that they're working on all sorts of different things like city maps, mod support, and all new ways of traveling. Stay tuned. I don't know what this means.
This is probably a lie. The Creation Club is gonna happen before all of this, most likely. And when the Creation Club, aka the paid mods, happens, it's pointless to add this, because a modder will already have made it. And that's gonna be just free money for Bethesda. So this most likely is never happening. And even if it is, even if we assume it is happening, it took literally more than 2 and 3 months to add in something as simple as FOV slider. You know, the thing that every Bethesda game doesn't have at the start and everyone always complains about needing, and then Bethesda caves in after a year and adds it. Yeah, that thing. And an eat button. That was the work of 250 developers still working on the game. Well, there probably a lot of them are working on the expansion. But, you know, still, that was the work of technically 250 developers. And that's it. 3 months. An eat button and an FOV slider. If this is coming, if this is real, it's probably going to take them at least 20 years to implement at this rate.
To me, it heavily implies vehicles of some sort. Maybe not. Maybe it's just like allowing you to take a tram through different areas instead, like they added to Cyberpunk. I have no idea. But at the very least, it seems like they're open to adding new forms of traversal, which is cool. However, those immediate things that I feel would make the game significantly better, specifically opening up the fish bowls, allowing for multiple of these little areas to be tied together indefinitely as you explore the whole planet, that apparently is not as easy a nut to crack as one would think. You see, pretty much the moment that the game launched, people started experimenting. In this case, Draspian over on YouTube posted a series of videos attempting to basically break the system and allow the game to load in an adjacent tile. In other words, landing shortly outside of, say, New Atlantis and trying to load with different console commands into New Atlantis, traveling over there without the game crashing or preventing him from doing so. And eventually he actually was able to get it working in this secondary experiment that he did. You can see the game starts to run like absolute garbage, but maybe that's just because it's loading in so much data, loading out data. It's just kind of complicated. You see stuff glitches. This is not the video freezing up. This is the actual recording of the game. The actual game itself was stuttering like this. But he eventually reaches New Atlantis, pulls up, the city loads in pretty much in its entirety. It's not just like a weird low poly version that you see off in the distance.
It's pathetic that this is the city, by the way. That's really pathetic.
But then...
Well, honestly, the most pathetic part is probably the fact that there's Starfield fanboys who are saying that Neon is the greatest city ever built, and it's better than anything that Cyberpunk 2077 has to offer, which is blatantly just lies. Good
the
stuff,
game
though.
crashes, and initially he thought that maybe this was just crashing because the game has like a built-in self-destruct when you load to a new area, but apparently he, after investigating some more, describes in the description that he feels this is more likely due to the game unloading the spawn point for the player, which, according to regular operations of the game, should never happen. You should always have the spawn point available in the immediate area. So if you travel too far out, it just breaks. So there could be ways to fix that in the code, you know, add in a little exception where the game allows the spawn point to move with the player as you go through the world or something. But at the very least, it's interesting that you are able to travel to adjacent tiles and the game loads it in. It's capable of doing that. But I mean, as you can see, you can actually travel across multiple tiles. The game is able to sort of render it. And as he travels closer and closer, you see over here, warping slowly, he's going to get closer and closer. and then eventually the game's just going to crash and break apart. But at the very least, this shows promise that maybe you could actually tie these tiles together, because the game is capable of doing it if you go in and disable all of the fail safes.
Another loading screen, essentially. Yay, because Starfield needs more of that for sure.
And protections that Bethesda put in the code. So it's possible, maybe it's something that modders could do, or Bethesda could officially do, maybe as an exclusive next generation patch, right? Maybe they could do that. And they actually did get this working in a mod that you can download if you're playing on PC right now. You can try it yourself. It simply removes the planetary tile boundary, but it does lead into a bunch of random issues, such as the game crashing, the game having horrible performance when you get too far from your ship, but at the very least, it lets you do it. However, the eagle-eyed among you will see that there's something a little weird about this whole thing, which is that it's not been updated since September 10th. Very shortly after the game launched. They actually had this open during the early access for the game. They got it working, but they stopped updating it, and you can read through all of the comments and stuff to kind of get a breakdown on it. But basically, after I spent a good chunk of this afternoon reading through these comments, it's really fascinating, but there are some core issues that prevent this from just working or being something that they could patch.
One of the funniest things about Starfield is how Todd Howard said that this is the most mod-friendly game ever. And every modder for Starfield has pretty much come out and said, yeah, no, this is the worst, most unfriendly modder thing in the universe. It could not get worse than this, probably. It's great. It's great.
Or add. It's a core problem with the engine. To demonstrate this point, I need to go back to the late 2000s, early 2010s to early Minecraft. There's this video from Lentern, which does a phenomenal job of breaking down the complete history of Minecraft's farlands. And if you don't know what these are, basically within the code of Minecraft, it uses something called floats, which are really common in programming. And it's normally a really great way of allowing maps and different ways of storing data, such as locations, or in this case, the generation of different worlds and things, to be stored in a mass scale, but while retaining some memory and compressing everything, basically. That's basically the super bare bones way of understanding it. These floats are used to compress information like where certain things are on a map or what's happening away from a central point, which would be like the spawn point. So if the spawn point is 0, 0 on the X and Y axis, then you can go out, and floats allow you to store data and information on what's where much more efficiently. However, Minecraft had an issue where the further out you went from that initial spawn point, the floats would get less and less accurate, which is one of the faults of them, is that they have really high resolution effectively at very close proximity to spawn, but the further out from spawn, the less accurate it becomes. In other words, if I pull up MS Paint, the tool for champions, instead of
Yeah, we got it. You start here. Here it's perfect, here it's less perfect, here it's bad, here it's really bad, here it's super shit. And the reason that is because chances are most people will never get here in the first place, or even less likely travel there a second time, so the information there technically doesn't matter. And the reason that problem exists because, again, no one actually goes there. So, no one even knows that problem exists. So that was stupid. I'm not a programmer. If I said everything wrong, by the way, it is what it is. I'm not a computer guy. I unironically think computers are black magic. Prove me wrong. Pro tip, you literally can't.
Same experiments that we've already gone through. They also break down a conversation between a couple of modders that have been working on this particular mod in question that opens up all of these tiles for players to explore. And specifically what's said is, glad to see someone exploring how to solve this, the problem of all of the tiles being broken apart and separated. When I heard about it, it made me wonder if this design choice was related to floating point error. The greater the distance things come away from the world origin point, the more chaotic.
No. I have a theory about this. Well, not about the tiles, but about that Starfield is definitely not what Bethesda wanted. So, there's a very interesting thing I noticed when playing Starfield, And that was before I discovered, as every sane person should discover at some point, that the optimal way to fast travel, or to only get, roughly 4 loading screens instead of 20, is by going to the mission log and just using the fast travel from there. Otherwise, you need to get into your cockpit, which is an 8-second, first you need to get to your spaceship, then you need to load into your spaceship, which is a loading screen. Then you need an 8-second unskippable cutscene animation of you sitting down, because, obviously Bethesda. And then you can pick where you want to go. And then there's an unskippable animation of you taking off, which, by the way, fun fact, is not a part of the load screen. Yeah, the animations of warp travel or you going off planet is not a load screen, Bethesda. Every other game implements that in their load screen, but you didn't. It's a separate animation that it doesn't do anything with the loading. Yeah, when you go to warp speed, you turn and you see the animation. That's not the loading. The loading only happens when the animation is finished. That's the stupidest thing ever, Bethesda. The stupidest thing ever. But anyway, that was off point. When you take off a planet, you can sometimes see that it actually gives you the in-space controls of the ship. So I think that Bethesda initially wanted you to actually be able to fly and whatnot, but considering the engine is the same one that, they made Oblivion and all of that stuff on 20 years ago, the engine just can't handle it. So they scrapped the idea because it was unsustainable. Probably because it needs to be on Xbox also, because, game consoles kind of are holding back a lot of games. Because consoles... The next console that comes out in 2, 3, 4, 5 years, I have no idea when they're coming out, is gonna be already 7 years old from this point, probably. Because the console tech cannot be made to be actually viable for modern day gaming. It's always 10 years old, even the newest versions. It's garbage. And I think they had to scrap it. They wanted to freely fly around and whatnot, but I think they had to scrap it because of consoles. Because again, when you fly off, you can see for a very, very brief moment the space controls when you're in space for the ship before the animation starts. So why would that be? Well, because Bethesda's bad and they couldn't remove the thing fully before it started. They just pasted the cutscene over it, and sometimes the cutscene loads a half a second later or whatever. It is what it is. It's stupid.
It was probably the only way to keep the physics of all the clutter under control, to which Cybernoct, another user and modder, replied, "Ring ding ding, we have a winner. Yes, this is almost certainly the limiting factor behind Bethesda's development process of the game. In essence, they would have needed to modify the engine to feature something like floating point origin. All world objects get offsetted such that the player is in the center, in other words. In essence, they would have needed to modify the engine to feature something like floating origin, which is where everything in the world floats around the player instead of a centralized point, such as in Starfield, the point of origin like your ship, which as far as I can tell is where the point of origin is for Starfield. It's always your ship, which is why if it ever unloads, it causes the game to crash." He goes on, "There's likely other creation engine complications that would need to be solved too, but floating point imprecision is most likely the source of these issues." In other words, if we go back to MS Paint, within Starfield, they tried probably early.
In other words, no one cares, huh? It is what it is.
Minecraft before they solved this problem with major engine overhauls, where basically the game would start to stutter uncontrollably. It wouldn't work properly because it couldn't keep track of the player's location, because it couldn't actually detail where the player location was on the map with enough resolution to be able to track all of this, which is really, really crazy. And again, it would just cause the game to break down once the player got far enough away from the origin point such that the game engine couldn't keep track of all the data and locations and things it needed to. And so to be clear, I'm not a game programmer programmer. I don't really know much of this stuff. I have been relying on people that do understand it to explain it to me, and articles breaking down how this stuff works, such as this one from gamedeveloper.com, which breaks down how these floating points work in comparison to like straight up integers, whereas
is that it? Is that the video? How is this? This is not a Starfield discussion. This is a floating point discussion. I don't care about floating points. I don't care why Starfield developers have it tough. I don't care. Okay, listen very carefully. I don't care about Starfield devs or why the game engine is bad.
they are not going to be able to do that, and that Starfield is just going to be like this pretty much forever. But I do really want to have a modder on here to discuss this, either on Luke Stevens Live, my second channel, or here on the main channel.
Okay, so modding is not going to fix Starfield. The main reason why Starfield cannot be fixed is because you look at what needs to be fixed at this point, right? Let's just look at some of the things that need to be fixed. Not even all of the things that need to be fixed. Let's just look at the big ones. First of all, exploration. Second of all types of combat. Third of all, melee weapons not existing. Yes, they technically exist, but they're all the same weapon, honestly. They attack at the same speed. There's no point in having melee weapons, honestly. Third, mobs. Mob combat is just dumb. It's either you kill them in 2 shots or 1 shot and they stagger, or it's something that requires a full clip and they just stagger constantly. So the combat is non-existent. The dragon shouts are stupid, weak, or overpowered, or completely nonsensical. That's need to be fixed. Ships are stupid. Ships have no point. Space combat is bad. The perk system is absolutely horrible. They took Fallout's original perk system where you pick something that does a cool thing, and then they mixed it up with Fallout New Vegas's passive bonus system, which is if you use 100 stimpaks are suddenly 10% more effective because you have used 100. So they mix those 2 systems together, and it's dumb. The perks are one of the worst thing ever. Second of all, the perks are completely useless and need to be removed. Half of the game is literally behind perks and inaccessible, even though the game is designed of you having all of it. So essentially, the first 20 levels, if you honestly play this game, you're gonna have to put perks in random stuff that makes no sense, that essentially just unlocks the game for you. You can't stealth without without putting a perk in it. You can't lockpick. Well, actually, you can, I guess. You can't fly ships. You can't even use jetpacks. Jetpacks are the are literally a core element of the game. It's not do you want to have a jetpack, it's that you will have a jetpack. There is not a single person playing Starfield who does not pretty much almost instantly take the jetpack perk. And if you don't instantaneously take it to unlock it, well, then you're trying to level up desperately so you can unlock it. It is what it is. That's how bad Starfield. Again, and this is just brushing on. Bruh, we can go deeper. We can go so much deeper in everything that's bad about Starfield, by the way. The base building, the interactions, the writing. Well, the writing is one of probably the most egregious ones. The writing feels like it's done by a 5-year-old or something like that. It's just so sad. Again, we have so many great examples of Starfield writing being absolutely abysmal. The 2 best examples are the Crimson Fleet quest and the hotel quest. No, the luxury resort quest. So, the Crimson Fleet quest is like this. You go and join the Crimson Fleet to become a space pirate, because, there's a difference between NPCs, which is not existent, by the way. So, you have this quest, and there you have the leader of the Crimson Pirates and another dude who wants to join them. Now, the dude who wants to join them wants to actually betray the big cheese. Oh yeah, he's evil. And he tells you, hey buddy, do you wanna betray him, kill him, and take all his stuff? And you can tell him yes and no. And what happens when you say no? Well, In a normal Bethesda game, you would try to shoot him. But you can't. He's invulnerable. Okay, well, that's stupid. Let's do the alternative. Let's go tell the big cheese head honcho that he wants to betray him and kill him. Oh, what's that? You can't. You can't. And the worst part is, throughout the storyline, that new guy who wants to betray him, if you say no, he asks you like 3 or 4 more times, hey, do you want to betray him now? Do you want to betray him now? Do you want to betray him now? And every single time you answer no, you still can't do anything about it. He's just there, and that's it. And at the end of the... and again, the worst part is probably the ending of this. At the end, you can't kill him, or you can't tell, and you can't tell on him to the real leader guy, right? And when the quest ends, he doesn't get in because he's garbage, but you get in. And the Crimson Fleet only cares about their own people. And then that guy who wanted to betray him comes up to you and says, hey, you better watch your back, sonny boy. By the way, in a lounge with the Crimson Fleet, there's Crimson Fleet people all around you, and now you're one of them, but he's not. And he literally just blatantly tells in front of everyone, you better watch your back because I'm coming for you. And that's it. That's the end of the conversation. Now, obviously, a sane person is going to instantaneously take out their weapon and shoot him. Do you know what happens when you do that? You aggro the whole Crimson Fleet. That's what happens. Yeah. Yeah. You, a member of the Crimson Fleet, who just got said that he's going to be attacked by the guy who's not a part of the Crimson Fleet. If you try to kill him, the Crimson Fleet will attack you. And guess what? He's still invulnerable. You can't even do it. Yeah. That's how bad the writing and the roleplay is, okay? And that's one example. And the other one is the best example of what people use when talking about how Starfield is just comically stupid in writing. So, there's this luxury resort, and you encounter a group of old Earthers, the 3rd generation, who left Earth before the collapse, and they didn't have a faster-than-light traveling capabilities. So it's their 3rd generation. Now they want to settle on the planet. They come to this planet. There's a resort there, and now you need to fix the issue. And this is comically stupid because you have only a couple of choices. You either go buy them a new engine that has faster-than-light capabilities, so they find a new place to stay, or you sell them as an indentured servants to the resort, or third, you blow them up and off them. Those are your options. Those are literally your only options. The people leading the resort, the CEOs, are comically stupidly evil. They unironically just instantaneously just say, hey, get rid of them. And well, in a normal Bethesda game, or in any game that makes sense, you would have the ability to say, no, you, and just pew 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 them. You can do that, but they're all invulnerable. They're all invulnerable, so you can't do that. That's good. So it's comically evil. The guys at the resort, the CEOs, are comically evil for no reason, and you have no choice but to either just go and buy them a new engine or blow them up. You don't have any other choice. It's that hilariously bad. Yeah. And also, by the way, it's a huge planet, and the resort is like this little itsy bitsy dot on this huge of a planet, and it's like, can the colony people just, go to the other side of the planet and establish themselves? No! Obviously. Yeah, it's just comically sad and bad, honestly. It is what it is. Again, there's no mod can fix all of the dialogue, and all of the dialogue is bad. Man, there's so much bad things to say about Starfield. It's amazing how much that is. Anyway, that was Luke Stephens. It's this guy. Yeah, his picture here completely does not represent who he is there. But times change. We get less cool. Anyway, this was Quizzer Sid saying thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already, and have a nice day. Bye bye.